Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another knitting video. In today's video I'll be showing you how to knit my sweet summer line top. Right now I'm wearing the prototype and it's definitely not perfect. It's a real prototype. There's some inconsistencies. I was still trying to figure out how to do this part, so it's a bit messy and not perfect. But I've learned from this prototype and I've changed a couple of things. I did write a pattern for this that's linked in the description down below, so if you are interested in this you can get it there. And for now let's start knitting and make the actual sweet summer line top. For this project I'm using this yarn, which is the Bell yarn by Drops, in this really beautiful petrol color, and this is shade number 17. And this is a mix of, let me check, cotton, viscose and linen, so I think this will be perfect for a summer project. Then the needles I'm using circular needles. I have a set of 3mm needles and 3.5. I want to start with my 3mm needle and I'm going to cast on 160 stitches using the long tail cast on method. I'm just making a slip knot right there. And then I'm going to cast on, and what I like to do is get some stitch markers. I have 16 here, so after every 10 stitches I will place one stitch marker, so that by the end I will have 160 stitches on my needle. And I'm doing this because otherwise I will get distracted and lose count, and this is just way more efficient. So let's get started. So that's 10 stitches, so now I'm going to place my stitch marker and continue casting on. I now have the 160 stitches cast on, and I did run out of my long tail cast on too at this point, which I already predicted because this always happens. I either run out or my tail is way too long. This time I ran out. Now I'm going to join in around, and I did make sure to check that none of the stitches were twisted, so the cast on edges on the inside of this circle everywhere. To join in around, I'm going to just cast on one more stitch, then I'm going to slip this stitch purlwise, so like this. Now I'm going to get this extra stitch I made. So I'm gonna try and get in here, pass it over and then drop it. Slip this stitch back to the left because this is the stitch that came from the left needle. Gonna put it back. This is now joined in the round. So I'm gonna place my stitch marker, different colored one, golden one here, to mark the beginning of the round. And now I'm going to work 7 rounds of 1 by 1 rib, so knit 1 and purl 1, and then we'll get back to continue working on the rest. Okay, so I finished my rounds of the ribbing. For this next round I'm going to purl all the stitches to create a ridge, and then I'm at the same time switching to the larger needles. And then I'm also at the same time going to place my stitch marker. So I'm going to be placing one every 40 stitches. Okay, so that's 40 stitches. So now I'm going to place one of my markers. This is going to be M1. Let's place it here, and this is the center back marker. So now I'm going to do another 40 stitches. And that's another 14. So now I'm placing the purple marker, which is going to be M2. M2 is the, I think, left side. So then again, purl 40. And now I'm going to place another blue stitch marker. This is the center front. Then knit the remaining, or purl the remaining 40 stitches. And now we're back at the beginning of the round, and I've also switched to the other needles. I'm going to put my beginning of round marker back on my needles. So now we're going to start working the twist patterns for the remainder of the top. So let's start by resetting our row counter. Now there are two ways to knit the rest of the top. You could print out a chart for the entire top and follow along that way, which I did, so I have it right here. I personally like to work this way because I'm always working on multiple projects at the same time. And this way I know exactly where I left off and where I need to start again if I'm taking a break to do something else. You could also just follow along with the written instructions and the basic chart for the right and left leaning twist, which I have right here to show you. For this video I'm just going to kind of explain both at the same time, both methods. One thing to note before we start is that the first stitch before and after M0 and M2, so the stitch markers for the sides, are always plain stitches. The pattern doesn't really cross these because the increases will be done before and after these stitches. That way there will be a really neat column of stitches going up on the sides. So if you get to the part where the pattern would cross over these stitches, just stop working the pattern at that point. So on this first round, I'm first going to knit one normal stitch, which is the base stitch I was talking about earlier. Now we're going to start the right leaning pattern that's on this side to the first half of both the back and front piece. This is the basic chart for the right leaning twist. Let's knit those first stitches. Now we're going to the right twist. I'm going to grab my right needle and I'm going to go into this second stitch as if to knit and then knit it while the other stitch is still on the needle, pull it through, but I'm not slipping this off the needle yet, so I'm going to keep it on here. Then I'm going to go into this first stitch right here, wrap the yarn around, and now I'm going to slide both of them off the needle. So now we've done the right twist. Now I'm going to knit 6 more stitches. And this is basically the pattern, so we're always repeating this part of the pattern. And now I'm just going to work this till I get to the point where I don't have enough stitches left before M1 to finish one more row, or if I'm following along with my full chart, till I get to this point. The first round is now done and now we are moving on to the next round. On this round we are again starting with this one knit stitch like this, and then we're following a chart. That means we now have to knit 2 more stitches. The next stitch we're going to slip purlwise. So I'm going in as if to purl, and then I'm just slipping it off and moving it to the next needle. Then I'm now knitting 7. Before there were 6 stitches in between the twists, but obviously those were 2 stitches and the slip stitch is just 1. So now we're doing 7. So again here we are, and we're going to slip this stitch and just continue doing this for the entire thing. I'm now on round 10 and this is where we're going to make the first point of the V. First I'm just going to go ahead and keep working the pattern till I get to the final twist before the center front center back stitch marker. Okay, so that's the slipped stitch on the final twist before the marker. So now what I'm going to do is just basically continue working the pattern. So I'm going to knit 7 stitches. And now you see that I have 1 stitch left before the stitch marker, and I'm going to slip this purlwise just as the pattern tells you to do. Slip the marker and do the same. So I'm going to start here with 1 slipped purl stitch and then knit 7, which brings us to the rest of the pattern. So now I'm going to slip this and continue doing this for this entire round. So here we are, we're at round 15, aka the first increase round. To do the increases, we're going to increase before and after the golden stitch marker, so M0 and M2. I'm going to first knit 1 stitch. And now we're going to do a make one left. I'm going to pick up this bar between these two stitches from the front to the back. Then I'm going to knit through the back loop like this, so that we don't get a hole. So I'm going to knit that stitch and the next one. And now we've increased one stitch after this marker. So let's work all the way towards the other marker, and then we're going to do the other side of the increase. We are now one stitch removed from M2, so the other side. We're going to do a right leaning increase here. So we're always doing a right leaning before the marker and then left after the marker. We're again going to pick up the bar between the stitches, and this time from the back through the front like this. And then you go in through the back loop, which is always a bit fiddly. So in this case that's the front loop. So then I'm going to knit the other stitch, slip the marker, again first knit the stitch normally, and then make one left. So pick up the bar from the front to the back. You have to go through the back, knit, and then continue working the pattern. I'm going to go ahead and continue working the chart and the pattern till we get to the point where things change a little bit. At this point up here the distance between the V's becomes smaller for the last couple of V's, but we're only doing this on the front, we're not doing this on the back. So I'll go ahead and get cozy, get a cup of tea, put on a show, and I'm gonna work till I get to this point right here. I am now at the center front marker, so that's M3, on round 50, which means that now we are decreasing the distance between the V's. Whereas before, on slip stitch round, there were 7 stitches in between slip stitches. That now changes to 3. There are now 4 stitches left, which means that I need to knit these 3 and then slip this one. And then obviously do the same on the other side. And this is how we are going to continue from now on. So on every odd row there is now going to be 2 stitches between the twists, and on every even row there are going to be 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'll check back in with you once I'm at around 74, where we are going to start shaping the neckline. So I'll see you then. Okay, I'm now about 3/4 of the way through round 74, and I'm pretty sure I forgot to mention this in the previous clip, but the last couple of rounds I've worked a moss stitch on the back piece, and for this I just alternated knit and purl stitches. Then on the next round I purled over the knit stitches and knit over the purl stitches. On round 74 there are a couple of things that are different from other rounds. The first one being that this is where we're going to start shaping the neckline, so the point of the V-neck. To do this, I've just finished after this final slip stitch. So there are now 4 stitches left, and I'm knitting 1 normally. Now I'm going to do a decrease. Here I'm doing a knit 2 together. And then knitting this stitch normally. Then on the other side of the stitch marker, I'm knitting 1 stitch, and then for this side we're doing slip, slip, knit. And now I'm going to continue working this round till I have 4 stitches left on my needle, because that's where we're going to start casting off the back piece. Here we have the final 4 stitches, and like I said before, this is where we're going to start casting off for the back piece. And I can now remove this stitch marker as well. And I'm just going to go continue doing this till I get to 4 stitches after the next stitch marker, which is the start of the front piece. I've now cast off 4 stitches past the stitch marker and also removed the stitch marker. And now I'm going to start working row 1 for the right front piece. So we get to the stitch mark, which marks the center front. And then we'll put the remaining stitches on a piece of scrap yarn and we will work that once we're done with the right front piece. So I'm going to start working the chart and I'm going to do 1 edge stitch. And now we're going to start decreasing. And for this decrease we're doing a slip slip knit. And now continuing the pattern as usual. Now there are 3 stitches left before the stitch marker and we're going to do another decrease. This time doing a knit 2 together. And then the edge stitch. Now we're at the stitch marker. I'm going to remove it and I'm going to move these stitches onto the scrap yarn. And we'll get back to that once the right side is finished. So now we are switching from working in the round to working flat for row 2 because I am going to reset my row counter for this. We're going to turn the work around. Again, we're always starting with an edge stitch. So now, because we're on the wrong side for purling, now we're going to do another decrease. Instead of doing a knit together, we're going to do a purl 2 together. So same as with knitting. I'm just putting my needle in both stitches purlwise and purling the stitches. And now we have 3 stitches left. And again, I'm going to do a decrease. This time, instead of a slip slip knit, we're doing a slip slip purl. And then purl the edge stitch. So now we've already decreased twice and I'm going to go ahead and continue working on this right front piece following my chart. And then once there are 3 stitches left, that's when we're going to move on to the straps and then we're almost done. I have now finished about 35 centimeters of the I-cord strap and this should be long enough. It all depends on your measurements, but this works for me probably. So now I'm going to cast off these final 3 stitches, which is very easy because there are only 3. So just casting them off and then I'm leaving a tail that's long enough to be used to sew the strap on and to also thread through the entire I-cord later on to secure the strap in place in the front. The front pieces are done and I finished the straps. So now I've quickly tried this on to figure out exactly where the straps need to be sewn on and how long they need to be. As you can see, I made the straps way too long actually, but this is fine. I'm just going to sew it down along here. I'm just going to go and sew it down into this moss stitch. So that's now attached. And because the I-cord is pretty stretchy, as you can see, and I don't want my straps to be stretchy, I'm going to take the remainder of this tail and weave it through the inside of the I-cord. And then once I reach the front, I just go out through the back. I also want to make sure I anchor it on this side. I'm just going to go through some stitches. That's pretty secure. So now I can just weave in this tail. That's one strap done. So I'm now going to go ahead and do the same on the left side. And then we'll be back for the final review. And here we have the final result. I'm so happy with how this turned out. I think this is way better than the prototype. I'm really happy with the changes I made. I really like this color. I love the fabric that this yarn makes. It's so soft, it's so comfortable to wear. And I'm just so proud of this pattern that I made. So again, like I said before, if you are interested, you can get this down in the description box below. For now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day and I will see you in my next video. Bye!